After winning 100 million in the lottery, I quit my job and went back home. As soon as I reached the door, I heard my brother's wife, Zoe Cook, saying, "Mom, I want to buy a mansion. Tell Kathy Jones to pay the down payment." My mom replied, "She just finished paying off the mortgage on this house last week. She probably doesn't have any money." Zoe scoffed, "Did you forget? Jim likes her. Make Kathy marry him and then ask for $1 million to cover the down payment." My dad added, "That's a good idea. Then the mansion will be my grandson's wedding house." Zoe commented, "By the way, Mom, Dad, when Kathy gets back, tell her to move out. My brother will be moving into her room." It was the first time I overheard this kind of conversation. I never expected them to be so ungrateful. I lifted my head, holding back tears. I felt so bitter. The draft in the hallway made me shiver. I stood outside the door for a long time before taking a deep breath and opening it. "I've told you many times to be more careful when coming in. My son is sleeping. Don't forget again, okay?" Zoe looked at me with disdain and then turned to my parents, winking at them. My dad coldly asked, "Why did you come home so early today? Didn't you say you'd be working overtime?" "I was fired," I said flatly, and everyone was stunned. My brother, David Jones, was the first to react. "What? Why did they fire you? Was it because you upset Jim Wood by rejecting him?" Jim Wood was my direct supervisor. He was petty, strict, and lecherous during the years I worked for him. The pressure was so intense that I often suffered from insomnia and hair loss. Whenever I couldn't help but complain to my family, they always scolded me, saying I was overreacting. Eventually, I stopped telling them anything. I didn't want to talk to them anymore, so I turned and headed to my room. But my mom stopped me as soon as she heard I was unemployed. Her expression changed instantly, and she said directly, "Pack your things and move out tomorrow. Zoe's brother will be living here. Why should I give up my room for him? I bought this house. I'm not leaving." My father got furious.
What do you mean by that?
"You have to move out." Zoe seized the moment and added, "Exactly. Just because you paid for the house, you think you own it? You're going to get married sooner or later and leave the house. I'm warning you. Don't even think about it." David grabbed my suitcase from the room and shoved it toward me. "It's already decided. We're just informing you. Stop talking nonsense and get out." My parents had always looked down on me since I was born, while David used to be kind to me. But ever since he got married, he completely changed and did everything Zoe told him to do. Zoe had always been cold toward me and took her frustrations out on me when in a bad mood. My parents and David always turned a blind eye, and no one ever stood up for me. I thought we were family, and that if I was good enough to them, they would eventually change. I worked hard to earn money and buy this big house, but in the end, I became the most dispensable person. "This house is mine. I'm not moving out." After saying that, I dragged my suitcase back into my room. I unpacked the clothes and hung them back in the closet one by one. Zoe sneered, "Mom, Dad, see? Your daughter has grown so bold that she doesn't care about anyone." My father, enraged, tried to slap me, but I grabbed his arm and he couldn't move.
Dad, don't get mad.
"Just tell me what I said wrong." Zoe yelled, "You're completely wrong. This is the Jones house. You should obey your parents." My mom tried to calm my dad and softly complained, "Kathy, I don't want to blame you, but we're only asking you to move out for a few days. Why are you making such a big fuss?" "A few days? Mom, don't think I don't know. Zoe just got her brother a new job, so he plans to stay for a long time. This is my house. Why should I give it up to strangers?" "Strangers? How can Zoe's brother be a stranger? Since I married David, her brother is your family too. You should treat him like your own brother." Zoe gestured dramatically while speaking. "Treat him like my brother? Ridiculous." It was one thing for my parents, David, and Zoe to take advantage of my money, but why should I spend money on Zoe's lazy brother? They truly thought I was a fool. "Zoe, you're really shameless. My parents won't give me the key to that small house I bought before. Isn't it true that your parents are living there? So what?" Zoe replied arrogantly. My parents and brother just watched without any intention of stopping her. I looked at each of them. "So, you're all determined to kick me out, huh?" Zoe, gritting her teeth, said, "Yes. You're not giving those 2 houses back to me, are you?" My father glared at me angrily. "Nonsense. Don't even think about those houses. They don't belong to you, and it's not your decision. We'll see." I felt hopeless and suddenly didn't want to stay another minute. I didn't want to waste any more time arguing with them. This was a small issue that could be solved with a lawyer. I took nothing with me and left the house. That suitcase had been thrown out by David, and those old clothes had been handed down by Zoe because she didn't want them. I didn't want them either. I checked into the best 5-star hotel in town and consulted the best lawyer. I had paid the down payment and the mortgage on the houses. The lawyer said it wouldn't be hard to get them back. After hanging up the phone, I felt depressed and angry. I wanted to cry, but couldn't. My parents always favored David because he was a man. If it weren't for my grandparents paying for my education, I wouldn't have even finished high school. After getting into university, I worked up to 4 jobs at once, sometimes so exhausted I'd fall asleep standing. After graduating, I got a full-time day job and a part-time job at a fast food restaurant at night. I worked hard for years, saved every penny, and finally got my parents and David out of my grandparents' old house. I thought buying 2 houses would make life easier. But unexpectedly, I was kicked out overnight just because I lost my job. They completely turned their backs on me. How ridiculous. Family love could disappear in an instant, but at least I was lucky in another way. I looked at my bank account balance and couldn't help but smile. I still had money. $100 million. An amount I couldn't spend in 10 lifetimes. I bought a seaside mansion in a luxury area. Now, I woke up whenever I wanted, did yoga, and watched TV. Life was incredibly comfortable. There was a homeowners group in the mansion community. After joining, everyone warmly welcomed me. They were all wealthy women who talked daily about makeup, clothes, and similar topics. I never used to care about those things, but now my mindset had changed. With money in the bank, I told myself I should indulge and enjoy life. So, I joined their conversations enthusiastically. In a few days, I became friends with them, and we often went out for coffee or shopping together. One day, I was in a luxury store with my new friends when suddenly, my father called me, furious. "You are such a bitch. You sued us. The court summons have arrived, and the neighbors are mocking us. Ungrateful. If I had known you'd turn out like this, I should have strangled you when you were born." My mother grabbed the phone and started crying hysterically. "We only had a few arguments. Why do you have to make such a big scene now? We're so humiliated in the community. They almost believe we treated you badly." I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh. Wasn't it true? They never treated me well, and now they even kicked me out of my own house. Since I was a child, I always had endless chores waiting for me as soon as I got home. But I never minded because we were family. However, after David got married, and especially when they had a baby, I had even more to do and became more exhausted. No matter how kind I was to them, my parents and Zoe were never satisfied. They truly treated me like a free maid. My friends used to joke that I must have owed them a debt from a past life because I worked like a slave to pay it off. I could only bitterly smile. "Kathy, we gave you life and raised you. That's a huge favor. What more do you want?" "I want nothing but justice." After saying that, I hung up the phone. My friends and I continued enjoying our shopping. Just as we were about to leave the mall, I saw Zoe walking toward me, chatting and laughing with a middle-aged man. They looked like a loving couple. When Zoe spotted me, she panicked and quickly distanced herself from the man. "Kathy, are you spying on me? I didn't think you were that kind of person. Why don't you go find a job instead of following me?" Seeing the guilty look on her face, I wasn't angry. I just laughed. "I'm in no rush to find a job, and I have zero interest in following you. Who do you think you are?" At that moment, my friend Mary Lee couldn't hold back. "Who is this woman, Kathy?" Mary asked. "She's my brother's wife," I replied. Mary immediately recognized the man. "Ben Cox, you're meeting with a married woman. Aren't you afraid your wife will find out?" Zoe rolled her eyes and lied. "I'm not her brother's wife. She's talking nonsense. I'm just one of Ben's employees. Our relationship isn't what you think. Don't misunderstand." Ben frantically waved his hands, desperately trying to distance himself from the situation. Zoe then threatened me. "Kathy, I'm warning you. If you tell David, I'll rip your tongue out." Right then, David appeared. He had come shopping with his boss and, upon seeing us arguing from afar, rushed over. "Kathy, I'm warning you. Don't upset Zoe. She's pregnant with our second child. If it's a boy, it'll be a great contribution to our family." Our family, I thought. Since the day they kicked me out, I no longer had anything to do with them. David's expression instantly darkened. "This isn't something you can decide. You're so stupid. Even if you win the lawsuit against our parents, you'll still have to pay alimony. Either way, the 2 houses are ours, so alimony means nothing to us." At the mention of the houses, Zoe lost control. "Those 2 houses are ours. Don't think you're going to keep them." Zoe had always been irrational. I worked hard to buy those houses, and now I was simply reclaiming what was mine. I hired a lawyer, and I'll be getting those houses back soon. You two should go home and start packing. Think carefully about where you'll live next. Zoe was so furious that her face turned red. She turned and slapped David. "Are you going to let Kathy humiliate me like this? What's wrong with you?" David then tried to attack me, but my friends immediately surrounded him and stopped him. Vand, another one of my friends, looked at Zoe with disgust and said, "Why don't you take your husband and leave? You can't afford to pick a fight with women like us. We all live in the mansion community." Zoe stared at me in shock. "How did you end up with them? Are you working as their maid?" Mary glared at her and replied disdainfully, "A maid? Kathy is our neighbor. You rented a mansion. Where did you get the money for that? Did you secretly marry Jim, and he gave you monies?" Zoe asked incredulously. Mary laughed sarcastically. Kathy didn't rent her mansion. She bought it outright. David and Zoe were stunned. What? When David and Zoe were left speechless upon learning that I had bought the mansion outright, an indescribable satisfaction surged through my veins. But it still wasn't enough. They deserved more than shock. They deserved to feel the weight of the contempt I had carried for years. With a smile that blended disdain and superiority, I turned to my friends and said, "Let's get out of here, ladies. I've wasted enough time on people who aren't worth it." As we started walking away, I heard David's voice tremble with rage. "Kathy, do you really think you're going to get away with this? You have nothing. Those houses are ours, and I swear to God you'll end up alone, begging on the streets, just like you always should have been. Pretend all you want that you're in a better position now, but you're not. You've always been dead weight." I stopped in my tracks and looked at him from a distance, a mix of pity and disdain in my eyes. "David, do you seriously think you're going to come out of this looking like the victim? You're married to a woman who lies, cheats, and manipulates, and you delude yourself into thinking you're better than me? Zoe treats you like a puppet, and we all know it. You know what's funny? Even with all the support from our parents, even being the golden child, you've never built anything on your own. I bought those houses. I paid for the comfortable life you all live, and now that the ground is shaking beneath you, all you can do is threaten me. How pathetic." David was speechless, but Zoe, furious, lunged toward me, her face twisted in rage. "You think you're better than us, don't you? Just because you got lucky and won the lottery? You're a loser, Kathy. You always have been, and you always will be. Nothing will change the fact that you're just a bitter, lonely spinster with no one." I took a deep breath, and for a moment, I considered letting her keep spewing her insults. But then I realized I had endured enough my entire life. I stepped close enough for Zoe to see the firmness in my eyes and, with a steady voice full of disdain, I responded, "I might be single, Zoe, but at least I'm free. Free from an unhappy marriage with a man who treats me like garbage and from a family that never valued me. Now look at you, stuck in a life built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal. You think you're in control, but the truth is you're just a prisoner of your own actions. Keep making threats. Keep lying to yourself. In the end, it's you who will end up alone." Before Zoe could reply, one of my friends, Mary, stepped in and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Kathy, don't waste your time on people like them. Let's go." As we walked away, I heard Zoe explode with rage. "You'll regret this, Kathy. I swear I'll destroy you." I didn't look back. Instead, I turned to Mary and smiled. What a pathetic performance. That night, when I got home, I opened a bottle of wine and allowed myself to relax on the balcony of my new mansion. The sea breeze brushed against my face, and for the first time in a long while, I truly felt at peace. Yet, something inside me was still unsettled. I knew the legal battle would be resolved, and I would reclaim the houses, but that wasn't enough anymore. They needed to learn, in the harshest way possible, that I was no longer the naive girl they could control. The next morning, I called my lawyer and asked him to expedite the lawsuits against my parents and my brother. Within days, court summons were delivered to their doorstep, and soon I saw them squirm under the weight of justice. But this was just the beginning. I hired private investigators to track every move Zoe and David made. I knew Zoe had more to hide than just that meeting with Ben Cox, and I wanted every possible piece of evidence. It didn't take long for the results to come in. Zoe wasn't only cheating on David with Ben, but also with another man. Even worse, she had been siphoning money from their joint account to fund her personal luxuries. Once I had all the evidence in hand, I knew it was time to use it. I arranged a reconciliation dinner with my family, sending formal invitations for them to meet me at an upscale restaurant. I knew they would come. Curiosity and fear of losing any chance to regain control would drive them there. On the night of the dinner, I wore my best dress, one that radiated power and control, and prepared for the show. When my parents, David, and Zoe arrived, their faces were tense, full of expectation. Zoe looked particularly nervous, which only made me smile inwardly. They sat down, and I began to speak calmly. "I've thought a lot about everything that's happened between us, and I've come to the conclusion that maybe you're right, maybe I overreacted a little." I saw relief flash across their faces, especially Zoe's, who immediately tried to seize the opportunity.
See?
"I knew you'd understand, Kathy. We're family, and we shouldn't be fighting like this. I always knew you knew what was right." I nearly laughed out loud but held it in. I looked directly into Zoe's eyes and, with a cold smile, slid an envelope across the table. "Before you continue, you might want to take a look at this." She hesitated but grabbed the envelope. As she opened it and flipped through the photos and documents of her affairs and embezzlement, Panic spread across her face. David, noticing her reaction, snatched the photos and stared at them in shock. "What is this, Zoe?" Zoe tried to stammer out an explanation, but I cut her off, savoring every second. "That, David, is the real Zoe. Your perfect wife, the mother of your second child, cheating on you with multiple men and stealing money from you. And before you even think about confronting her, know that I've already sent copies of everything to your boss and all your friends." David turned pale, his hands trembling as he dropped the photos onto the table. Zoe, desperate, began crying and pleading, but no one was listening anymore. I looked at my parents and finished. "And as for you two, soon, you'll be receiving a court order to vacate my houses. Enjoy your last days there." I stood up, tossed the bill onto the table, and as I walked away, their panicked, desperate voices echoed through the restaurant. After my victory in court and the recovery of the two houses, I realized there was still more to be done. Winning 100 million in the lottery had given me more than just comfort. It had given me power and, above all, options. I decided that merely reclaiming what was mine wasn't enough. Now was the time to plan my next move. And nothing seemed more rewarding than investing in real estate. After all, in the city where I had lived for so long, there was a growing demand for quality properties, and I had more than enough money to seize that opportunity. I reached out to a reputable real estate agency in the area and began acquiring properties little by little, discreetly, without raising suspicion. My goal was clear: to expand my influence in the local real estate market without anyone knowing I was behind the purchases. I bought houses, apartments, and small commercial buildings, all in prime, strategic locations. Each new investment grew my portfolio, and my presence in the market silently expanded. About 3 months after my parents were forced to vacate the house I had reclaimed, I received news that made me laugh to myself for hours. Apparently, they were facing financial difficulties. With David completely ruined after the scandal with Zoe and unable to help, my parents were forced to look for a new house to rent. Out of all the options in the area, they became interested in a house that was, coincidentally, managed by the real estate agency handling my properties. Unaware of who owned the property, my parents signed the rental agreement with the agency. And without even suspecting it, they moved into one of the houses I had bought with a portion of the 100 million I had won. Fate had taken care of delivering the revenge I didn't even need to fully orchestrate. When I received the notification of the first rent deposit in my account, I couldn't help but flash a wicked smile. My parents, who had kicked me out of my own house and treated me like a burden my entire life, were now paying rent directly to me without even knowing it. The irony of it all was so delicious it felt unreal. They, who always thought they were in control, now depended on me for their very roof. And the best part, they had absolutely no idea. Weeks passed, and I continued receiving their payments on time. My other properties were also generating excellent income, and I felt increasingly satisfied. Life was finally giving me everything I deserved, and my parents didn't even realize how fate had taken care of paying them back. It was a sense of silent justice, one that didn't require me to get my hands dirty. One day, I received a call from the real estate agency. The agent, with a polite tone, informed me that the tenants of one of my houses, the one my parents were living in, wanted to discuss a possible rent reduction, claiming financial difficulties. It was the cherry on top. My parents were struggling and needed help, but this time, I was the one in control. I scheduled a meeting, without revealing who I was, of course. When my parents arrived at the real estate office, I was placed in a private room where I could watch them through the security camera. It was almost surreal to see my parents there, sitting humbly, trying to negotiate. My father, who once had unshakable pride, now sat with his head down. My mother, who had hysterically cried on the phone months ago, now spoke in a pleading tone. "Is it really impossible to lower the rent a little? Could the owner maybe reconsider?" my father asked the agent, visibly embarrassed. I could have easily agreed, let them pay less, but why should I make things easier? They didn't make anything easier for me when I needed them most.
No.
I decided the rent would stay exactly the same. The agent politely conveyed the decision, and upon hearing it, my father looked visibly frustrated. My mother began to cry. Watching that scene, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me still had that old urge to please, to be seen as a good daughter. But that Kathy was long gone. Now, I was a woman who made cold, practical decisions. And at that moment, the right decision was to let them feel the full weight of the consequences of their actions. I quietly left the room without them seeing me and returned to my mansion. The money would keep flowing into my account every month, and even though they didn't know it, my parents were now trapped in a cycle where I held all the power. They had lost all control over me, and the ultimate irony was that while they thought they were free of me, they were actually living under my roof. I controlled them from a distance, and that brought me a sense of silent justice that no confrontation could ever match. Fate had indeed delivered the revenge for me, and all I had to do was watch.